Alright, so this is my top 10 moments from the Sony press conference from E3 2014. If you watch my other videos, you know that those were just top 5 moments. The reason this is top 10 is because I feel like Sony had more stuff that I enjoyed, and it had to be a top 10. Otherwise, I just have a million honorable mentions, which I still have a lot of compared to the others. But this one had to be a top 10 list because there was a lot of stuff that had me very excited. I thought this was a great conference. It was personally my favorite. Otherwise, I would have had like a top 10 from one of the other conferences. But I feel like some of the stuff that wasn't shown at other stuff was saved for Sony, which it intentionally wasn't uh, for one of the games that I'm going to talk about. But it was a great conference. They had a lot to talk about as far as PlayStation itself and some of the things they're doing. And then they just had a lot of good games. I personally thought it was the best conference, and I haven't seen the Nintendo video that they're doing. I know it's not exactly a press conference because they kind of changed the thing up. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, but so far it's with Sony, and I know this video is late, but I finally got to finish watching it last night. So I was almost finished. I was at like the last 10 minutes, and then I had to stop for like hours, and I didn't get to finish it until last night. So that's why this is like 3 days late compared to, or 2 days late rather than just being 1 day late. But it was a great conference, and I'm gonna go through my top 10, and of course you can put below what your top 10 are or top 5 if you only have 5 moments. And I'm going to put the link below to all the other top 5 videos I did, which are of course for all the other conferences, and I'm going to add the Nintendo one once I finally finish that video and of course finish watching the conference. So I have a top 5 or top 10 if they really wow me with the stuff that they're doing as well. But my number 10 for Sony, and this is starting off really simple. My number 10 and 9 are very simple for me. Number 10 is the YouTube share thing. That got me excited because it just connects to YouTube. It makes it easier for people who want to capture their games or possibly stream their games straight to YouTube and to some of the fans that they have there rather than whatever the service was that they were using before. Because initially I just assumed that it went to YouTube because it just seemed like the typical thing. But it could have been Twitch, and of course if you have a PS4 you can let me know. I didn't exactly look into it because it would have just depressed me knowing anything about that because I can't afford one. So I just made an assumption that it was YouTube, but them making this announcement shows that that's not what it was, and they're taking steps forward to have better integration with YouTube, so people can just do their files. It's done. Boom! It uploads to whatever my account is on YouTube, rather than what I'm gonna guess is either Twitch or PlayStation's own personal new thing. But it makes it easier for people to reach their fans because if it is Twitch, you might have a lot of fans who don't exactly go onto Twitch because they don't want to look through or they don't know how to navigate it, so they don't want to spend the time to look for you. They just want to go to YouTube, which for the most part everybody knows. They can just type in your name and go to your videos, and it'll just say you're live streaming now, and then they can watch you on YouTube, and it makes it easier for gamers to get to, or players to get to their fans, and I guess technically gamers to get to other gamers who they want to watch. So I thought that was really cool. It has me excited for when I finally get a PlayStation. I can just upload straight to my account, and I don't have to worry about going through and waiting for it to upload even longer than it normally would, even though it'll probably take about the same time. It's not going to do much difference, but it'll be faster because I won't have to upload it to whatever random site it was before or whatever service it was and then download it from there and then re-upload it to YouTube so everyone else can see. So that had me excited. I thought that was pretty cool. And then number 9 is both the PS Now as well as the PS TV. Initially, I had those separated, but I had to just combine them so I could have a top 10 rather than putting one as an honorable mention or kind of shunning the YouTube thing as an honorable mention, because I feel like all three of those they are fairly similar. They're just new applications. But of course, the PS Now application and the new PS TV, which is its own device, those two definitely help gamers as well as just typical media users get more out of the content that they already own. And what I enjoy about the PS TV, and even though they didn't actually say it this way, based off of what I heard, it seems like it's really just like having another PlayStation 4 in your house. So I thought that was really cool, or possibly even a PlayStation 3. I can't really remember if you could even use it. I think you can use it to play your PlayStation 3 games. So that's pretty cool, and you could basically just have the files downloaded or um, download them off of the PlayStation Store, so that you, like I said, basically have two consoles, but you don't spend two consoles worth of money. So that was really cool, and it could have you, it could allow you to basically play with whoever you want to within the household, because, as I'm sure a lot of you know, a lot of games don't really let you do co-op on console anymore. It's always single player, and then it'll say 2 to 4 players online, and it drives it, for me at least, it drives me nuts, because it's like, I really wish I could just play this with the people here and not have to go online. So now if you have to, as long as you have two different files on your PlayStation, you could just have someone, or I guess technically the other person could download their PSN file onto the PSTV, and you can use your console. And as long as they have the game, they can sort of download the data that they need to, and then you can both play in the same household, but you actually be able to play co-op instead of doing one at a time. So I thought that was pretty cool. It would also just allow you to get all the other typical stuff that you want if you want to use it for media and stuff like that. That's also really cool too, and it comes with a little. I think they only said like 8 GB, or I feel like they said 8 MB. Like, that could be wrong, because that's nothing. So it has to be 8 GB. But it was definitely a cool concept. I'm curious to see how well that sells. I think the pricing is good for it. $100 is not bad. The bundle is an even better price, because it comes with a controller, which controllers by themselves, if you get them brand new at least, you can't get cheaper than like $40 even off of Amazon. They're still only like $5 off if you go on there. So that's a great deal for, I believe, $140. It's, it's the $5 off, but it also at least comes with an HDMI cord, which those can be, I don't know how much they really cost, but they probably cost way more than they're really worth. So you can at least get another HDMI cord, which, since everything is going the HDMI route, you can always use more of those. So I thought that was really cool. The PS Now is also really cool, which I love, mostly for the fact that you can have a Sony TV and use PS Now, and just as long as you have a DualShock controller, you can play what you want to with PS Now. So I thought that was really cool. And you get the controller, you can basically load up your ID and download whatever you want to the TV, and you can just play your games there, which is, once again, like having its own console. And I'm curious to see if you can basically start up a PlayStation ID with the Sony TV, and if they'll allow you to do that, like how old the TV can be where it still works with the application. And that'll be really interesting to see. But I thought that was a great idea, where you could just play the game straight off of the TV, and it's the same thing as like downloading the games on the PSTV, except it's completely wireless. There's not as even a device except for your TV. But I thought that was cool. The controller syncs up to your TV. You can play. I believe they went all the way back to PlayStation 1 games, if I remember right. You can download all those games. It helps with backwards compatibility, because it allows you to have your PS3 games still, and you can basically just play them with your PS4 controller if you have one, or if you have a PS4, I mean. And I thought that was really cool. So I'm excited to see how far back they'll let the technology go as far as the TVs, where it still works with the applications. And I can't remember how much that costs. I don't know if they even said how much the PS Now service would actually cost, but if it's with the PlayStation Plus stuff, then that also helps, because it's just, there you go, you just have more free games. But I think it is its own little service. But that's also really good. It helps with getting the media for people who aren't really the hardcore gamers. It helps, and I thought it also helped with hardcore gamers, because it helps both people get what they want out of it. You can have the gamer who plays the games off of their TV, and then you have the person who just uses all the media functions that only Sony can offer you. So I thought both of those things were definitely well done. And like I said, I'm really excited to see how those things actually play out, and how well they sell, and how far we can go, especially with the PSTV, if it really will work like just owning another console, but for only $100 or $140 if you get the bundle pack. But those two definitely had me really excited. I thought they were just cool new applications that I just weren't expecting, and I thought that's just going to add a lot of value to anything Sony has, and already owning PlayStation games, it'll just add to that, and it'll help you get your games faster, and it'll let you get your games pretty much anywhere you want to. So you can just take the PSTV with you. It's like, I just want to play this later, and I'll take it to my friend's house instead of taking my entire PlayStation. I'll just switch the files here, and then I can still use two. We can still both play the same game off of this little thing. So excited to see how those come out. And then my number 8, and this one is finally getting into the actual games, is No Man's Sky, which is an amazing indie game that's coming out. And I first saw this game at the Spike VGA Awards last year, and they showed like a tiny bit of content. It was really just the person was on the planet a little bit. It was a lot like the demo, or I guess technically the trailer they showed us at the Sony conference, where the player was on the planet. They looked around, there were a couple of ships flying, and then they got in their ship and they went into space, and then it was just seamless. They were in space, and then they went to another planet. And in this trailer, we actually got to see a lot more of that, because they didn't show the whole species exploration thing in that first demo I saw, and we got to see what were basically dinosaurs. They were on the planet, they're doing their own thing, just walking around. Then the one sort of rhinoceros type of dinosaur was knocking down trees, so the player leaves the planet and they go off into space. And we actually get to see space combat, which I thought was pretty cool. It shows that it's not just, oh, look at this and look at that. You go around and you shoot up spaceships for whatever reason. You can fight off random people. If I remember right, they did show a part where the player actually had a gun. But it was definitely cool, and I love the way it looks. It has sort of a cel-shaded style to it, but it's not exactly cel-shaded graphics. But it looks really good. All the colors just look really good. Everything's almost neon colored, and I thought that looked really cool. Even the grass is oddly detailed, or oddly bright, I should say. And I just love the way it looks, and I'm excited to see how that game turns out, because so far it just seems like it really is just go wherever you want and kind of make up your own story. You just find new planets, and that's the fun of the game. But I'm curious if they're gonna put a story in, or if they're gonna implement character or player created levels, which I feel like this game is just perfect for that, considering they already have a game that kind of builds worlds itself. Why not implement even more stuff and let the players build their own worlds too? So I feel like that's just something that's inevitable for this game. It might not happen at launch or even anytime soon after that, because if I remember right, there are only 4 people actually making this game, and you can look that up. I'm pretty sure I'm right on that, but it's an amazing game, and only 4 people have put all this insane amount of work in it. So it might take some time before they decide to go with user generated content, but I feel like that's where this game is headed, because it's already so vast with the system itself making so many worlds. Why not just add to what's almost limitless now by allowing players to do the same thing? So I'm excited for that game. It is an indie game, and it's definitely one of the best I've ever seen. So I'm really excited for that. I love the trailer we got to see with all the different planets. We got to see the ships and the combat and the different species, and I'm sure you're going to have to go up against some of the creatures on the planets, because not everything's just going to be nice and eating trees and looking cool. Some things are going to go crazy and attack you, because wild animals are wild animals. They get scared, they attack. So I'm sure we'll get a lot of combat in the game as well, but I'm really excited to see how that one plays out when it's closer to actually launching. Number 7, I was really excited for this game, mostly because I love the last game. A lot of people did. They were excited for it. I enjoyed what we first got to see of it, which was at the Ubisoft press conference, and then in this, we finally get to officially see Far Cry 4, and I thought it looked really good. I was excited to see some real gameplay. The graphics looked really good for it. It basically looked exactly like the opening to the game, which looked really good, and that just shows the tech for the new generation of consoles. It just looks great. We got to see some of the same stuff that was in Far Cry 3, like the takedown that they did, where the character jumped from his car, pulled one guy out, then stabbed the other guy, pushed him out of the car. That was cool. Then the mountain's just crumbling down, so he jumps out of the car and uses the wingsuit, which was probably my favorite part of the whole thing, because it allowed them to show us how vast this world is, at least a small part of it. where the character is actually going down into this valley. So that was really cool. They looked around. There was like a little bridge we got to see with a random person walking across and talking. So we got to see a little bit of the mountains. We saw the snow-covered mountains in the beginning portion when he was walking to the location. And then he's of course flying down in the wingsuit. We see all the stuff, and then we get to the field and we see elephants that are there. I thought that was cool to see, and that's when they introduced the second player coming in once the character decides they need help taking out this base. And I'm hoping that by the time the game comes out, we'll actually get four-player co-op during the campaign, the main campaign, because they had four-player co-op online and it was a completely separate story from just Far Cry 3. It was its own thing where each character had their own dialogue and stuff like that. So that was really cool. And I hope we get that in the main campaign, because in the multiplayer, you're really restricted based off of points and stuff, because you can't get nearly as many points and you can't have as many powers as you can have in the main campaign because you're already fighting with three other people. And it would be amazing to see all the branching and stuff that they have in the main campaign get implemented into four-player co-op, because I'd love to see that, where everyone's just incredibly powerful, and then we all go in, and maybe I went the stealth route, so I have all the insane stealth skills where I'm way faster, or I can throw knives farther or something like that. And then someone else is like the melee person, so they get up close and personal with people, and someone else is the gun person. So I'd love to see like that implemented into the main campaign, where we don't get restricted because it's co-op, so that they're like, we don't want you to be too powerful. Just boost it automatically, like some games can do now, where if there are more people, the game's just automatically harder. So hopefully we'll get some tech like that in there. We get to play the entire campaign up to four players, and it's not just two-player co-op, because I feel like that would be a disservice to what they can do with the tech, especially since they did four-player co-op online with three, and it's really the exact same thing. You can just do a little bit more as far as abilities with the characters. So hopefully we'll get some of that. And it was cool to see that the second player came in, and I have to assume that character is a main part of the story. So if they are going to do four-player co-op, they probably just haven't created the characters yet or officially made them where they're ready to be shown off yet. But I feel like the characters that are going to come in to help whoever player one is, they're going to end up being the supporting characters that are actually in the main campaign, and then they'll just happen to be played by other players and brought into the fight rather than being just over the radio and stuff. So that was really cool. Second player came in, had the helicopter and stuff. I enjoyed that. That was really cool to me. And then he drops off the first player, and he's going around shooting a grenade launcher while flying the helicopter with one hand. And then the player one is doing his own thing and just going crazy. And I love that we got to see the elephants go nuts, because before they actually fly over the wall, when player one makes things go nuts and starts shooting and throwing grenades, the elephants lose their minds, and we get to see it. If you'd have to be watching the elephant to have noticed it, but the elephant actually charges the main gate and just blows it wide open because it's just wood. And then we get to see the elephant kill a couple people, and the elephant in the end is actually the one who liberates the little camp when it just destroys the car and it explodes. I thought that was really cool. We get to see a huge creature just go nuts and like kill people, because they're like, we're gonna get stomped by this elephant or it's just gonna ram us or something, so we have to take it out. So that was cool that they showed that off as well, and I'm excited to see what other creatures we're gonna get in this game, because 3 had a ton of different creatures. It had tigers, bears, like wild dogs that would attack people, boars would attack people, alligators, I think Komodo dragons were in there as well. So they had a lot of different creatures that would attack you, as well as sharks, but obviously the sharks wouldn't be on land. They also had bears. I don't know if I think I skipped over bears, but they had all of that. So I'm really excited to see what new animals they decide to use outside of elephants, since we've seen that, and what crazy creatures. Like, I'd love to see like a flying creature be just violent, which I don't think would do too much damage to the people, but it would just be more of a distraction thing. But if they put in like just birds that attacked you, if for some reason you had the eggs and you threw them at somebody, it's like, oh, the egg is cracked on this person, so the bird attacked. But regardless of what they do, I'm excited to see more of the story. I'm very curious about that. I want to see more of the main villain that they had in the opening of the game because I like this character. He was weird, and I definitely want to see more exploration. I want to see more of the world, and I want to see more of the animals and just more of the crazy stuff. Because I know they have a lot of hunting. I'm sure you're gonna hunt elephants and get like ivory from the tusks and stuff. So they're gonna have a ton of creatures in this game as well. But we got snow-capped mountains and like wingsuits and mountains that actually crumble in front of you. Although that's probably in certain events, it was probably scripted to happen with that specific event, or maybe it's just different locations do that, and then that location is changed forever. So I'm excited to see how that one turns out. But I really want to see more of the story and what the main point is, like why you needed a fake passport, where you were going, and why this person wanted to capture you, and how do they know you? Because the guy clearly knew the main character from the trailer, and he was like, I'd remember those eyes anywhere. So I definitely want to see more of what this really eccentric character is up to. He seemed really eccentric, even though he was calm, so to speak, because he did stab that guy with a pen. But I want to see what he's up to, because based off of the last game, they had a crazy good character or a crazy good villain that everyone seemed to love because of his dialogue, and they're carrying that over. They realized that was a good character. We're going to sort of do the same thing, but of course we can't just make him insane and exactly like that. But he was in a nice suit. He was mad he got blood on his shoes. He has money. So I want to see how the rich side of crazy works in the Far Cry universe. But I'm really excited for that game, and I definitely want to see more of the story out of it and more co-op. I hope, like I said, we get 4-player co-op, but I really want that. Number 6 was, of course, Batman. Like, it would have been higher on the list, but I already knew it was coming out. If it was just announced, then it probably would have been much higher on the list, because I love the Arkham games like a lot of people do. They're all great. And in this, they showed off the perfect demo. They didn't show off like weapons or anything like that. They showed off the Batmobile. We knew it was going to be in the game. It was one of the big things. Like, you get to drive the Batmobile. There was a video last week, I believe, where they showed the battle mode for it, and it showed off like this cannon, machine gun, anti-personnel rounds, stuff like that. It was like, okay, we get to see it. It was clearly in-game footage where they were just moving the camera around, but we didn't get to see it really do anything. It just stood there, and it was in this sort of weird mode. And we got to see both versions of it. The typical driving mode, which it was incredibly fast. It had the giant jet on the back, which looked cool. They went through some stone railings and just destroyed those, which I loved. I thought at first that the person just messed up, but they probably did it on purpose. And they hit the stone rails and just flew up the stairs a little bit, destroyed that. So you can hit certain things and break them off. I'd love to see, like, if I hit the corner of a building, if it just broke off and I still got to keep going. I'd love to see something like that. But it was great to see the Batmobile. We didn't see much of the really big character, who is of course the Arkham Knight, but we got like a tiny bit of information. We heard Barbara talk. The smallest bit of information we got on the Arkham Knight is her saying that the Arkham Knight had drones, and that was about all we got. And Batman going into the battle mode with the Batmobile and destroying those. So that was cool. It was an interesting sort of strafe mode. I thought it looked cool. It also changed the screen and had like target reticles and stuff like that. So it looked really cool. The gliding was really nice. The city was unbelievably huge, which of course they showed off when Bruce first jumped off the building. And it was just little stuff here and there that was really big. Like them showing off the city was an obvious thing. And Bruce putting on the armor in the beginning, I initially thought it was just a video, but it was in game. So I'm really excited to see where that is in the game, because he had the bat suit in the little container that came out of the floor, and he had the metal shades that went up once he was Batman. And I'm really curious to see if that means that throughout certain parts of the game you go back and forth between Batman and Bruce Wayne, because it seems like he's just in the city now. So things are crazy. Also, there were actually cars in the game. That really blew my mind, because every other game they had, the first game you were in Arkham Asylum, so of course there'd be no cars. And then the second game, it was Arkham Asylum or Arkham City, so it was the destroyed portion. So there would be no cars, and then the third one was the prequel where it was the same city as two, but there was still no one there because it was like, oh, citywide ordinance, everyone needs to be indoors. So they kind of played it off like no one was outside because the city told them don't be outside. But we got to see real cars, and that it was a tiny thing, but it looked really cool. It was like they had a police chase going on, which I'm sure is going to play into the game, where it's like you see a police chase happen, and then you just hop in the Batmobile and take off after them. I'm sure that'll be really cool. When he first landed and the Batmobile just instantly came around the corner, that was amazing too. You couldn't possibly hate that because it looked cool. It was just like in the trailer. Looked amazing. The ejector seat thing where he just shot way up in the air. He was flying so fast in this too. I thought that was really cool. But overall, I loved it. We got to see a little bit of Penguin. I loved the little thing they did where it was messing up. Because at first, I thought it was just it. Like anyone would have thought it was just messing up because it only did it like once. And then when he got to Penguin, it kept kind of messing up. And I thought, well, it's just freezing a little bit. And then it really messed up. And especially with the angle they gave, at least when I saw it, they were showing the lights kind of go crazy. So it was like, well, that obviously shows that it's on purpose because the lights wouldn't just be flicking like that. Those are completely separate. And then we get to see Scarecrow, who looks amazingly detailed, and I cannot wait for him to take off that mask, which I hope he does, or take off the hood, I mean, because the way they showed him, it was like part of his face was actually sewn up from what happened between him and another character. I won't spoil it, but you should probably know by now. But he looked really cool. I can't wait for him to take off the hood and we see how gross his face really looks under that. But definitely has me excited. Glad all they showed was the Batmobile. I do wish they kind of showed a little more. I'm sure we're gonna have new weapons. It just makes sense that we're gonna get some new stuff aside from the Batmobile weapons. But I'm really excited for that. And it was great to see them just drive through the city super fast. They went really far, really fast because that thing was flying because it has like a jet engine on the back. So it looked great. Also very curious to see what it looks like when you just ram into somebody else because I'm sure a ton of us are just going to crash a lot. So they didn't do that. They were really close, but they dodged those cars real fast. I probably would have hit all of them, but we'll just have to wait and play the game ourselves to see how that impacts us when the Batmobile comes up against like a sedan or something, because the sedan will probably lose. But number 5, The Order 1886. I was excited for this game when it was first announced. It looked cool. It was just the concept. The year was like old steampunk type of fantasy style, demon creature things, and it just seemed cool. There was footage of it recently that came out, and it was the main character and one of the other people from the Order, and they were fighting off humans in this alley. It looked really cool. I thought every time I see this, and it has to be because it's in the widescreen. I don't know if that's because that's just how they're doing it from now, or if that's how it's really gonna look. But with it being in widescreen, that makes it look more like a movie to me. And I just love the graphics in this game. It just has a really good look to it. So I enjoyed the little bit of footage I saw before where they were fighting people. But what they showed at the Sony press conference was really good because initially with these characters, I thought they're like the badass demon hunter characters. They fight demons, they kill demons, and that's really all there is to it. They destroy demons. And in the demo that we got to see, it showed a more horror aspect where the main character was by himself. He had an old-timey lantern, and he comes across the demon that starts off like normal, then he just grows huge. And it was like a horror thing where the main character freaked out and he had to run from this enemy. I thought that's really cool because I thought these people were just like, I'm gonna kill you, demon, and then they just do like some Van Helsing type stuff where they're never afraid. They just kill demons because they're that good. But it was cool to see that these people are really grounded and they aren't just like super cool where they just destroy everything. They have problems and they have to run, and the character got wounded, and then you kind of have to hide, and they do this sort of scripted thing where he was running and he was shooting with the handgun. I thought that was cool, and it just gave a cool horror element to the game that kind of shows off the fact that it's not just action. You're going to have your moments where you're not 100% sure you're going to win because we don't exactly give you the option to do whatever you want. You have to just run because that's how we want the game to play out. So that was a great demo, I thought, because it kind of changed my mind. Like, I was already excited for it, but it gave me a new side of what the game could be, as far as it's not just cool action game and you're just the cool characters in this cool world fighting demons. You're a real person, and you have to watch out for what you're doing, and you have to be careful because you aren't going to be perfect. So that had me excited. It was cool to see that. And I'm actually going to end this here since it's already 30 minutes, but definitely check out my top 4 as well as my honorable mentions. So that one will probably be long too. And so thanks for checking this one out. Please check out part 2. Definitely put your top 5 below our top 10 in this one, or you can do it in the next one. But thanks for watching this, and I will definitely continue the rest in part 2 so that this isn't a 60-minute video. But thanks for checking it out, and of course, comment below and check out the other top 5 videos that I have. Thanks for watching.